From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell at home in London, where it's been really nice this week to actually catch up with a few friends who I hadn't seen since before I went to Australia, who've had babies since I went away. There's also a couple of things caught my eye from the recent ICC board meetings, one of which was the use of stop clocks in all T20 internationals and one-day internationals from the beginning of June. So that should shave a bit of time off, around about 20 minutes, they say, off every ODI. So that's going to be very welcome.
I'm Geoff Lemon for the ABC in Melbourne. We've just got back from New Zealand, a couple of test matches over there, and doing ABC commentary for those and exploring the South Island of New Zealand, and back to Melbourne, where it's been 40 degrees a few days ago and it's going to be 6 degrees overnight. So back to regular programming.
Very Melbourne.
Welcome to the show, Geoff. And hi, Ali. I'm glad that you're back home for a change. I'm not, by the way. I'm in Dubai, having just landed here for a little bit of IPL work on radio. Apparently, it's pretty popular in this part of the world. So glad to be here. And the temperatures, Geoff, are pretty much what you mentioned. It's hot.
Hot. Geoff, great to have you back. Welcome back to Stumped. And I tell you what, the glitz and the glamour of the Indian Premier League is starting this week. So we're going to be finding out a little later on in the show what it takes to spot the next IPL star with the head of talent for Kolkata Knight Riders. So that's coming up. But we're going to start by reflecting on the second edition of the Women's Premier League in India that ended in dramatic fashion in Delhi as Royal Challengers Bangalore claimed their first WPL title with an 8-wicket win over Delhi Capitals with just 3 balls to spare. So there was heartbreak again for the Capitals, who've reached both WPL finals in the first 2 years and lost both of them. As for RCB, well, Australian all-rounder Elise Perry really came to the party in the back end of the tournament and in the final made an unbeaten 35 to help RCB chase down their 114. Arisha Ghosh hitting the winning runs there with those few balls remaining. Well, let's get a perspective on the tournament as a whole from a super coach of the women's game. Former England World Cup winning captain Charlotte Edwards is coach of Mumbai Indians, defending champions who couldn't quite make the final this year, knocked out by RCB in the eliminator. Lottie, welcome to Stumped. Commiserations, first of all, I guess, on the eliminator. But how do you and Mumbai Indians look back on your own tournament?
Look, it had the most amazing highs and obviously some real lows, obviously going out of the tournament the way we did. But I look back on it fondly again. It is an amazing tournament to be part of. The crowds in Bangalore and Delhi were amazing. Especially in Bangalore, actually. The game against RCB there, Mumbai versus RCB, was incredible. But yeah, very fondly, obviously disappointed not to go one step further again this year, but overall a real success.
Do you already start to think ahead to next year and starting to think, what have we learned? What do we want to do differently next time?
Yeah, absolutely. That starts straight away, if I'm honest. And we start planning now for the next 10 months to make sure we've got a team in place and make sure all those players are fully prepared for the next edition.
Charlotte, if we look at the final, you look at the performances of Elise Perry. I mean, she got RCB into the final itself and then was the dominant player in that chase as well. So 40 not out and takes 6 for against Mumbai to get their place in the playoffs. Then she's the standout in the eliminator. She makes 66 with the bat and puts them into the final. And then in the final, 35 not out there in a tricky chase when things could have gone wrong. It's extraordinary how she's been able to keep reinventing herself over the years. A player that you know well from working with her in the Magenta at Sydney Sixers. What did you make of her performance through the tournament?
She's just, she had an unbelievable tournament, but obviously peaked at the right time. And like you say, she's really evolved as a cricketer over the last 3 or 4 years. I think being dropped from that T20 team a few years ago in the Ashes, I think really sparked something inside of her, having spoken to her. And I think she said to me once in Sydney, she said it took so long. And it took for that to really reinvent herself. But she's an unbelievable cricketer. She's just getting better with age. She performed at the right time. But yeah, just the way she played as well. And I think her bowling was back to her best, certainly in that game where she got 6 for against us.
I've got to ask you, it's a sort of a twin question. One, your thoughts on some of the new emerging Indian talent, if you remember a few names. And secondly, I do wonder why such few Indians play the rest of the global leagues. Are they not in the same caliber just yet, or there seem to be just 3 or 4 who get picked, maybe in England or in Australia.
In terms of the young talent in India, it's incredible what's coming through each year. I think the one that really caught my eye this time was Shakib Shakil from the Gujarat Giants. She was an opening bowler who really came to the fore in the last few games. She's only 16 years of age, and I think huge talent. And obviously we saw Titus Sadu, who played for Delhi, or I think is another great young bowler. But every year you see someone new, and I love Shreyanka Patel. She's just something about that girl when she plays cricket. So the future looks bright for the Indians. In terms of other leagues, I guess you'd have to ask the coaches. We've taken Smriti obviously at the Southern Brave for the last few years, and she's been instrumental to our success here. And I texted her last night. Well, she knew she was going to be retained. It was just part of our strategy for the draft. And she's really much looking forward to it. So, and it's nice to see Risha Ghosh get picked up at Birmingham Phoenix. But I think sometimes it's about balance of teams, certain coaches who work with different people in different leagues as well. So I think we'll definitely see more Indians in the leagues and making themselves available as well. I think that's sometimes I think with the Indians, sometimes they're not available for sometimes the WBBL. And that could have an impact on their selections in other tournaments.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? A lot of the tactics, we talked about it with the WPL, some of those big name players that didn't make it, probably because of team makeups. And even with the 100 draft, you mentioned your role with Southern Brave, but David Warner, for example, not picked up in the draft as an opener. And, that's a spot where there's only 2 spots in every team, so it can be tight. I wonder, Lottie, how have you seen then the WPL evolve over just these first 2 seasons? It's obviously moved from 1 venue to 2. And where would you like it to go from here?
I think ultimately we all want to see it home and away, because I think that brings everyone into it, and the fan base as well. I think it would be fantastic. Having seen now in Mumbai and Delhi and Bangalore, you feel like the other teams should have that opportunity now. So that would be fantastic. And I think that then you're not playing so much at one venue that was the issue towards the back end of Delhi, was that we were playing on 3 pitches in Delhi, and those pitches were getting worn, and we were on one side of the wicket as well, which meant there was a very short boundary one side. And I think those type of things can, I guess, be avoided when you're playing home and away, and you can maybe play in more central wickets. So, but yeah, in terms of what it's done so far, I think it's been great. But I think to move it all forward, I think home and away. But again, that will make the tournament longer, and that's something the players will have to deal with. And obviously the Future Tours programme, I think everything needs to be sort of centred around that.
The fact that you were playing perhaps on the edges of squares rather than centre wickets, how much was that responsible for boundary sizes as well? Because you always sort of hear throughout the tournament, short boundaries sort of being something of a question or an issue. What's your feeling around that?
Yeah, look, the game, the way the game's evolving, the players are hitting the balls into the stands. And I mean, at times we had I think it was a 44-metre boundary one side. And it just feels like we've moved on from those points where years ago we used to be put on the edge of the square I certainly did for England at some of the test venues. So I think for the game to keep moving forward, have, good sized boundaries. Because as I say, some of the shots in this WPL, the ball's going into the stands, and that's just how the game's progressing, and it's so great to see.
Well, good luck for your next venture, that coming up in the English season, because you've got a 100 competition to defend as well with the Southern Brave. So best of luck for all of that, Charlotte. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And finally on Stumped, the glitz and glamour of the Indian Premier League is back as the 17th edition of the world's most popular franchise cricket league gets underway this week. Now, the defending champions Chennai Super Kings are searching for a record 6th title. MS Dhoni's team clinched their 5th last year, drawing level with Mumbai Indians as the most successful side in IPL history. But have you ever wondered what it takes for a player to actually propel themselves onto cricket's biggest domestic stage and be the next IPL star? Well, we can find out with Head of Talent Scouting for Kolkata Knight Riders, Abhishek Nair. Abhishek, welcome to Stumped. Great to have you on. Firstly, can you just explain for us the general pathway for a player to be scouted? How does your job work?
Well, I think firstly, thank you for having me. Well, it's quite it's quite in depth. It's just in terms of domestic talent. Firstly, when you talk about foreign talent, domestic talent, that's what IPL does. But I feel what we try and do is we have a system in place where we've got scouts in every zone of India, and a scout literally covering every cricket game played, right from the under 16s to the open category, which is first class cricket and T20 cricket. And we just try and make sure that they get enough data on each player. But I think the key, and that is something that most franchisees do, but I think what we do differently as a franchise is we also try to dig deeper into the player, understand the player's background, what he's come through, his upbringing, his coaching culture, the stuff that he's done to become the kind of cricketer he is. Because a lot of times we believe that the person behind the skill is as important as the skill that the person possesses. So yes, there is a scouting platform in place wherein our scouts sort of relay back everything that they see. We try and assess them through videos, through stats, through data, and then the most important part, try to understand the person behind all that skill.
And so is there any one thing, or, how do you know when a player is spotted that they've got the potential to be a real success?
Well, you don't really know, but, with all the data and obviously evaluating the player, and like I said, I think sometimes just understanding from the personal coaches, from age group cricket, how the player's grown, that's what you sort of take a punt on. The auction dynamic is as such that sometimes the player you actually want is the player you don't end up getting, because a highly rated player goes for big amounts of money. And sometimes when you're looking at that domestic talent, you're looking at picking those players who are sort of under the radar, but good enough to come up and then hopefully be a retained player for you. So I think the key is just to identify the character behind the person. And I feel that's sort of the differentiator, because of the amount of talent in India. Everyone's got skill, but the mentality is what we look for.
Abhishek, back to your own playing days. You played for Mumbai, you played for Punjab and Pune, as well as RR as well. Did that width of playing for different teams in different parts of India actually help you with your current job, knowing what, where, when, how, whom?
Failing in a couple of franchises sort of taught me, because I think through my career, like most people say, failure helps you understand. But I think what really helped with me was when I played for Mumbai, I was quite successful. And then moving to different franchises where the conditions are different, the pitches were different, the expectations of a cricketer were different. That's when I started to think, what was lacking in my game, wherein I couldn't sort of perform to that expectation that I had playing for Mumbai, because Mumbai was home conditions for me. I knew the conditions. You play 7 home games. So it creates another thought process where you start to look at a player and understand that if you want to perform in different situations, different conditions, what are the skill sets that a player needs to possess? And with that skill, does he have the mentality to actually back it up? Because, when you play the IPL, the first year may be great, but to come back and perform once again, the second and third year, the mindset, the thought process behind the person. And I feel my career and my failure in my career in different franchises sort of taught me that there is a little more than just playing a cover drive well or being able to power hit something to 6, but how tactically smart you are to overcome situations.
One of your favorite stories must be that of Rinku Singh, because you've been given so much of the credit for bringing him from wherever he was. And of course, he's in everybody's eye now, big star. So give us a sense of that story from the beginning. And of course, it's carrying on really well for Rinku and you.
Well, I think the beginning was, I keep saying this, the first time I met Rinku was my first session with KKR. I went up to Jacques Kallis, who was a head coach then, and I asked him, what do you want me to do, coach? My first time here. So he said, there are a couple of boys behind the side screen. Why don't you go have a look at them? That's the first time I met Rinku. He was behind the side screen trying to play a pull shot. And I asked him in Hindi, what are you working on? And he was like, sir, somehow everyone believes I can't pull and I can't play pace bowling well. So can you help me? So that was my first interaction with Rinku. Cut to, post the IPL with the KKR Academy, the thought process has always been to sort of try and get the player to become better eventually. So we started working on his red ball cricket, because with his technique and his overall setup, there were things that we had to work on. So that was sort of the inception with my journey with Rinku. He happened to actually have a great season that year where he scored excess of 800 runs in Ranji Trophy cricket. But that didn't really transition into his list A cricket and T20, because that was still something that he couldn't, get a grasp on. A lot of credit to KKR and the management, Venki sir. We've kind of stuck through with him. But I feel our journey has been about making sure the mentality was always there, but the skill wasn't. If you watch his first videos when he played Mumbai Indians in the first year, 2018 for KKR, his setup, his technique, everything was very different from what it is today. And he's put in a lot of hard work through that, first to believe in what we're trying to do, and then to keep at it for 5 years. It's taken 5 long years for him to then come out and do well on this platform. So sometimes identifying and scouting talent is also about pursuing with that talent and not giving up when that particular player hasn't scored runs. And I feel with Rinku, 5 years of persistence of KKR and the management, and then 5 years of Rinku persisting with, I want to become a better player, and I believe that this is what's going to make me a better player, is what's got him where he is today. So I feel it's a combination of everything, but a lot of hard work and a lot of working on self-belief that has helped him get here.
Abhishek, it sounds like your job scouting also involves coaching, but you've done some high-level coaching as well in the Caribbean Premier League, Trinbago Knight Riders. You know, suddenly you're coaching superstar players like Curran Pollard and Andre Russell and Nicholas Pooran. What was that experience like, having to try to tell players of that caliber how to go about their game?
Well, you don't tell them. I think coaching at the highest level is more management. I believe working with a Rinku is where I coached a lot. Whenever you work with any franchise or any team anywhere, whether it's high level or not, I think the key is to manage them, is to provide what they require. And that's what we do. You can't teach someone, but yes, you can be someone that would listen. I think it's really important to listen as a coach at that level more than talking, because the players you're dealing with have played so much more cricket and have so much more experience. It's just tapping into that experience and trying to remind them that they already have everything they need to have. It's just about providing a platform, I believe. And the coaching is less. When you work in domestic cricket, when you work in, for KKR in the IPL setup, there's a lot more coaching because the domestic players don't have that sort of experience. But with the big guns, with the big boys, I think it's just about managing, keeping them happy, keeping them in a space where they feel they can perform, in high pressure, and then making sure the environment is good enough for them to come back and enjoy themselves.
So then when you're at the other end of that scale, like when you find a player who is unknown, who nobody else is interested in except you can see something in this player, who do you have to sell that idea to? Like, do you have to convince the coach of the franchise to give them a shot? Do you convince the owners? Like, who is ultimately making that call to give someone a chance?
I feel it's everyone. I think right from the coach first, you need to speak to the coach, and the coach sort of buys into it. I remember, when we had the retention meeting, and Baz was our coach then, and we had the big meeting. The big auction after that. It is first, I need to pitch to Baz and speak to Baz and kind of explain to him how this player can fit the role in the team setup, because there are 25 players in every squad. So it's about making the coach believe that this is what this player can provide. And then obviously speaking to the CEO and then, the whole management and think tank. But it's my job to present to everyone there. And then the CEO, the coach, whether presented well enough, whether I've sold the player well enough in the meeting is what it all depends on, and whether or not the team's requirement fits that particular player's requirement. So I think it's more my job to sort of provide information, and then it's the coaches, the CEO and everyone, the whole think tank kind of collectively comes up with packing the player or not.
Abhishek, it's been great to have you on Stumped, and really interesting to hear about the scouting side. It's an area we don't often hear much about. So good luck for the upcoming season. Thanks for being with us on Stumped.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped. So I'll say a big thank you to Geoff Lemon for being with us, and of course to Charu Sharma. And we'll see you all again next week. Until then, bye for now.